Welcome to the last of the Col-Hi Wildcats 1982 podcast, brought to you by Deets on Man Productions.
Enjoy your youth, because it goes by quickly.
The grace of God supports you, and you're gonna be all right.
Seize every single moment because of this simple fact. You can't get more time.
To my high school self, I will say, get over yourself.
Life is a series of lessons. Some of them are far more expensive than others, right?
You are worth it. You are worth it. Don't ever doubt yourself.
It's breaking us into this first.
Hey, this is Scott Townsend. Welcome back to the last of the Col-Hi Wildcats 1982 podcast. And I have with me today, I used to say on past podcasts, I'm not going to tell you who it is. I'll describe them first, but their name is on the front of the podcast, so I'm not quite sure why I did that. It's Chris Hays. Chris Hays is with us today. Chris, how's it going?
Very good, Scott. Thank you. Thanks for letting me be here.
Oh, yeah. So I was looking at the yearbook, and there's a lot of page numbers you show up in. You were not only popular, you're like one of the athletic kids, the smart kid. Here's what the yearbook says here. Chris Hays, athletic pacemaker, has made the Phillips Splash Club tour team 5 times. She set 19 individual state swimming records. And I like this. I think this is funny. And 5 or 6 state relay records. It's like someone just turned this in for a grade. They're just like, hey, why don't you just go ask Chris?
She did. That was my response.
Oh, it was?
Marilyn Johnston interviewed me for that, and I at the night she interviewed me, I couldn't remember.
Well, there you go. Okay, so 5 or 6 state relay records. She was chosen to represent Splash Club during her junior year in competition in Norway, which we'll talk more about. I want to find out more about that. She also found time to work at Phillips teaching swimming lessons. She won 2nd place at the AAU state track meet for the 100-meter low hurdles. And yeah, so wow, that's a lot going on there. As well as being in the High Y and the John Baird Society, Gene Dean Association. What else is in here?
Oh God, there can't be room for much more. I was also a Girl Scout, which I really hid. I tried to hide it in high school because I was sure that just made me really nerdy or geeky, but it was something actually I enjoyed. I really enjoyed being outdoors and all of the stuff that we learned. And in fact, after I graduated from college, I reached out to the local Girl Scouts and worked with them, worked with a troop, took them camping. It was so much fun. These little 8-9-year-old girls. And in fact, they asked me the next year to be a troop leader. And I was like, I'm 24 years old or 23 years old. How can I be good enough to be a troop leader? But they asked me to. And so did that as well.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, so there you go. Wow. Your track photo, got a photo doing sit-ups, you're in everything. So yeah, that's crazy. Popular, athletic, smart. You had it all going on.
High achiever. I definitely reached high. And I think the cool thing is that all of that I did really set the tone for my character and the development of my character and all the things that I'm doing today with it, work, raising my kids, still swimming. And we can talk about that because I haven't been swimming my entire life. I did take a break and all of that, but it was all about the consistency, commitment, and attention to detail that I had, that I really became cornerstones of my character as an adult, as, an employer, as a mom, as a coach. And as a wife, as everything else that I am.
So let's go back to graduation, kind of like I ask everybody else, kind of give us the 35,000 foot view of Chris Hays, Chris Frederic over the last 39 years.
I know, I can't
You've got 2
believe.
minutes and you just say whatever you want and kind of fill in the highlights and bring all of us up to speed.
Somebody's messed with the calendar here, because I certainly don't feel like it's been 39 years since we graduated from high school.
Although I look like it's been 39 years.
But hey, Scott, you still have really great hair. So, there's several guys in our class that probably can't compete there.
Yeah, well, it's just a different color.
Yeah, well, mine is only because I can make mine whatever color I want. And I'm not ashamed of it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so after college, I went to the University of Kansas. I swam on the swim team. We were, Big 8 champions. I was conference, I think not the top in the conference, because my freshman year, we were 7th in the nation as the swim team. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And not that I went to nationals. I wasn't that good.
So
but,
back up just a second. So it was, you went to KU as well as Mindy Goodell, myself, Don Hyken, George Davis,
Marilyn Johnston, Trisha Hines. Daphne Sewell, I think she was, I can't remember if she was in our class or the year below, but she was there too. And
so there's like a handful.
There were quite a few of us, and sometimes in my memory it starts to blend between the swim team members and and the college high graduates, because I'll start throwing in people from Tulsa that I swam with, and because they were just part of my circle of friends. So
I'm sorry I interrupted.
That's okay. So there were a bunch of us that went to KU. And the really interesting thing is, probably the person I saw the most my freshman year, definitely saw Mindy. Don Hyken, only because, well, his locker was right next to mine, and from 7th through 12th grade, and we were in similar classes. And George Davis, because George Davis is also a chemical engineer. So I graduated from KU with a chemical engineering degree, and like everybody else, Mindy mentioned it in her interview. In 1986, oil was $8 a barrel. It had just crashed, major stuff going on, and engineers were a dime a dozen. In fact, the joke was that the petroleum engineers couldn't get a job at McDonald's, because if you wanted to work there, you needed a master's degree. And I know there were, I think, 42 people in my class for chemical engineering at Kansas, and 14 of those 42 had either a job or were planning to continue their education. And I was one of those 14, because I took 4.5 years to get my degree. And then there were 4 of us, I think, that took an extra year, or the extra half year, that were graduating in December. And of those 4, I was the only one who had a job. So
wow.
Times were pretty rough. Fast forward, because we know times go down, they come back up.
Right.
Fast forward a year from that, you couldn't find enough chemical engineers. So we were everybody was starting to get hired every year.
So cyclical.
Big increase in salary. It really is. Kind of like last year to this year, even in the middle of a pandemic, it was really difficult to find work last year, but now there's not enough people, and there's lots of opportunities. So if you're looking for a job to progress your career or anything, there's a pretty good chance you can find what you want. So I went to work in Lawrence. So I was in Lawrence for a couple of years, and then I moved to Baton Rouge, where the chemical industry is. So I moved to Baton Rouge to work for a company called DSM Copolymer, make synthetic rubber. And I spent the next 15 years there. And then, so I've basically worked in the chemical industry my entire career. I've worked in aerospace, I've worked in pharma, I've worked in basic chemicals, fine chemicals. I've run businesses, or managed businesses, not run them. I've just managed a business like P&L, supply chain, moved all around, trying to, I've done so many different things. And now I'm currently working for Mitsubishi Chemical in Memphis. I moved to Memphis 3 years ago from Baton Rouge. So Baton Rouge, got married, raised kids. My children are all college age. My youngest is 22. I think he's 22. Sometimes I have to do the math, but my children are all college age and older. Yeah, he's 22. I had to think. And moved to Memphis. I work for, like I said, Mitsubishi Chemical. We make acrylic. So we make methyl methacrylate, and this stuff goes into all the safety screens that you saw go up during the pandemic. And
the acrylic looking,
those clear plastic sheets.
right. Okay.
Yes. And also goes into 10% of every gallon of Sherwin-Williams paint is our product. So everybody who's working at home looking around going, ooh, this room needs to be painted. Everybody started painting their houses. So demand for our product just skyrocketed last year. And I'm responsible for getting all of the raw materials, and especially acetone, which goes into hand sanitizer. Acetone became so critically tight so that my entire life last year was focused around acetone. My kids would make jokes. Mom, acetonebuckets.com just called. I spent Christmas. Fortunately, we all learned to work remotely, and I spent Christmas making international deals to bring in. I think at the time I must have bought 20 million pounds of acetone while I was on vacation at my sister's beach house in North Carolina. And be like, yeah, got another one. I'm good. I'm not going to shut the plant down. Silly things, but that's what I've been doing in my life.
Isn't it interesting how many shortages came out of the pandemic? And with the pandemic, no one being able to go to work, and then they have the Suez Canal and the ship going sideways, and then not only the ship but the hundreds of ships behind it that couldn't go up and had to turn around and go back, and it's just a huge mess. And people like you looking for stuff,
right
now we're still feeling the effects of some of things, lumber, whatever, that it's all starting to get better, but it's been a challenge. Supply chain.
The supply chain is like that. I've got an analogy, but we had, I think, 4 vessels coming to the US with finished product because we needed it so badly. And my company has multiple plants around the world, so we ship product around the world, and we had 4 ships that were stuck behind that. What is that? The Evergreen, the Everclear. Might have been the Evergreen, and we just think of it as the Everclear. but the supply chain is it kind of feels like it's like the balloon that the clowns used. That long skinny balloon, and they blow it up, and you watch it
make funny shapes or
all
whatever.
The way to the end. I still think we're in the first third of that balloon blowing up. Just because of, or that balloon expanding. I think blowing up's the wrong term we want to use in chemicals.
Yeah.
But just based on my experience, and I just got a call last week. There's a product that we use, and it's in short supply. And every little hiccup causes a disruption in the supply chain. It's made in, I think it's made in Al Jubail in Saudi Arabia, and it was out of spec. I'm going to be impacted in November, December, something like that.
Something to look forward to.
It gives me an opportunity to, I have contingency plans for everything. But one thing that a lot of people don't realize was here in Memphis, the I-10, it's not the I-10, that's Baton Rouge, the I-40 bridge that goes over the Mississippi River Bridge was shut down for like 3 or 4 months, 3 months. And I was surprised that it took at least 2 weeks for it to make it onto the radar screen for the government to start talking about it for the infrastructure bill. Because that bridge got shut down. There was an inspection they were doing, and the guy who was doing the inspection found a crack, and you can go find, the crack looked like it was this big in that steel steel beam. And the inspector who was doing the inspection, once he saw that crack, he called 911 and said, "This is so-and-so from the inspection team, blah, blah, blah. Shut the bridge down now, get everybody off of the bridge." I mean, he called 911 and it took him probably, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes to realize this guy was legit and start.
Is this in Louisiana?
This is in Memphis.
Memphis, I'm sorry. Okay.
So this happened in May.
Okay.
And shut down the I-40. And anybody who's driven on I-40 knows how many trucks are on there. I think they said 25% of freight goes on this I-40, goes over the bridge. So this is 25% of freight in the US. And then they shut down the Mississippi River. Barge traffic completely shut down. It was shut down for a week. And we all know, we all should know from when I was a kid, learned how many goods go up and down the Mississippi River.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just north of the river. We had barges stuck on the south side. Other people had barges stuck on the north side. And I knew the river wasn't going to be shut down too long because people in Louisiana and in the South would starve.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a huge thing that wasn't even related to the pandemic, but it was exacerbated. The impact was exacerbated because we're already in this pandemic with this incredibly short supply, or tight supply chain, I think is the right word.
Going back to high school now, you went to, as a junior, as it mentioned in the little bio there, that you went to Norway representing.
I did.
Is that
that was huge.
What was that?
So Phillips Petroleum Company, and I talked about the tour teams as well, and I'm going to talk about that just to start. So Phillips Petroleum Company sponsored the swim team. They hired our coach. The coach had an expense account, and we had some of the best coaches in the United States. And if you look back at the coaching staff that Phillips had, even into the 60s when they first started the team, because Phillips had money. So oil companies, they promoted that sort of thing. And we were so fortunate to have really good coaches. But Phillips also knew that they needed PR because people didn't, Phillips was expanding. They had refineries all over. They had gas stations all over, and people in the community might not like the chemical company being there, the chemical plant being there. And so they would do this tour team, and they would take 4 girls and 4 boys, essentially a relay team from each age group. And so there's like the 10-year-olds, the 11 and 12, I think there were 4 different age groups. So 16 girls, 16 guys, and we'd go for a week-long trip somewhere in the United States. We're flying my first year, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Who doesn't want to go to Fort Lauderdale, Florida with their best friends? Me, Lauren Rolfing, Nancy Callahan, who lived here in junior high. Yeah, I swam with her older brother at Kansas, and I missed out the chance to actually see Nancy as a freshman because I was in the pool. But so Nancy Callahan and Christine Lukowicz, not Christine, it was me, right? Lauren, Nancy, I can't remember the third one. Maybe it was Jennifer Williams. Oh no, it was a girl from Madison. We went to Fort Lauderdale, and like Lauren Johnson would go, Randy Savage, they were there. And so, and our job, we knew, was to be polite, to be respectful, to have fun. But our parents all worked for Phillips, and we were all read the riot act by our parents about how we need to behave, and this is our responsibility. And we're going there to do PR, but we're also going there to have fun and swim.
Right. And
so we had kind of been groomed like this from the time we were young. And the other thing Phillips did is because Phillips had lots of North Sea oil rigs. And every year they would send 2 people from Bartlesville. So it was me and Lauren Johnson who went my junior year with our swim coach. And we went over to Europe, and it was a week-long trip. We spent 2 days in London, walking all around Piccadilly Circus, the Tower of London. It was really cool stuff. And, you know, my parents weren't there. And my parents never went on one of these trip teams either. But so we went over there, and our job was to bring a friendly face for Phillips.
Be the diplomat or
yes.
be the ambassador of.
We were. And then in March, Phillips had this big, huge, you know, national caliber meet that they would bring 2 people from Europe, from Norway, over to the US. So I stayed with the girl who had come the previous March. I stayed with her. And then the next March, the girl they brought over stayed with me. So we always stayed with a family. I went to the school, walked around Stavanger, and Stavanger, Norway is where we were. And we met with, I should have looked up the girl's name. She was in our class, and her dad was an expat over in Stavanger, and he was like the head guy for Phillips over there. We met with him. I ran into this girl on the street, and I'll remember her name at 2:00 in the morning. I'll text you.
Not at 2, please.
But we're heading to a party, and we're a dinner or a party. I guess it was like a dance party on the Saturday night of the meet. And I hear Chris as we're walking down the street in Stavanger, and I look, and it's this girl that had been in our class, and she was living in Stavanger because her dad was expated over there. Met with him. I met a bunch of different swimmers because we trained with the local team, and got to go to the school. People were asking me for my autograph. It was so fun. But also that year, we knew it was extra important because that was the year where 6 months earlier, one of the oil platforms had failed, and it had crashed into the North Sea. And we were there, and the Norwegians absolutely hated it. And here we are in November, and you can still see that platform turned on its side. It's an oil platform. And when I looked at it, I was like sick in my stomach because I knew people had died. And, you know, my father was, he was head of R&D for Phillips, and it was normal dinner table conversation to talk about the oil industry, to talk about what's going on. And when that platform collapsed, we knew about it, and we knew people had died. And you know, my parents didn't hesitate to share with us real life. Maybe that's why I'm so direct today. Some people are like, "Ooh, she's pretty direct," but that was just the way I grew up. My mother was not afraid to shield us from what was really going on in life. And I saw that, and all I thought was, why can't they get a crane and get this thing out of here? It's been 6 months.
Yeah.
I'm sure Phillips already was trying, and if they had been able to, they would have. But we knew it was even extra important for us to be representing Phillips. And I think I placed second in a couple of races when I was over there. And as much as I tried really hard, I did not beat the local star. I tried. She was faster than me. It's probably good. Probably good that I didn't show up. And while I was over there, I met Christine Svensson. And Christine was in our class. You've got to connect with her and get her on this. So Christine Svensson, Svensen, and I'm connected to her on Facebook because she and I have actually, she's in the yearbook. Yeah. So Christine ended up, we became really good friends, and she became an exchange student.
Oh yeah, Christine Svensson.
And she came over. She lived with my family for the first 6 months, and then she moved in with another family. And so she came to the US as a result of that, of me meeting her and saying, and just us talking about her wanting to come to the US. And I was like, well, if you really want to, you can come live with us. Hadn't talked to my parents. but I knew my mom would allow it because we'd already had international students live with us in the past. And really, when you come from a family as big as mine, one more person doesn't make a difference. No, not a big difference in the food bill.
Right.
But I'm going to take that story just one step further, if you don't mind.
No, fine. Go ahead.
2017, fast forward to 2017, and I'm back swimming again. I'm over in Houston, Texas at a swim meet, and I know the team there, and I'm the only one from Louisiana there. And I go over and I'm going to sit with the team from the Woodlands because I know a lot of them. And I go over there and I set my chair down next to this guy. I'm like, do you mind if I set my chair here and, plant myself? And he's like, sure, not a problem. And so I reach out my hand after I set myself down and I'm Hays Frederic. And this guy said, he's shaking my hand and he stops and he says, we went to high school together. And I'm thinking, oh, perfect. I've got no clue who this guy is. And he just recognized me. And which means he had already kind of sort of thought he recognized me. And then when he saw me, he was actually 3 years younger than us. He graduated with my younger sister, Laura, and he had gone to the University of Arkansas with Laura as well. And they were really good friends. And so Matt Gentry is his name. He's like big, huge, bulky guy, as opposed to the skinny, scrawny guy he was in high school, which don't mean any offense, but everybody is skinny and scrawny in high school. and now and so a couple of other people kind of sit near us, and there's this guy, and he's got an accent, and we're talking with him, a nice guy. And Matt and I are having old home week, and we're talking with this guy, and this guy looks over at us and he says, you guys mentioned Bartlesville. Do you know the Splash Club? And we're like, yeah, that's where we swam. And he says, well, I'm from Norway and I came to Bartlesville to swim in the Meet of Champions, which is the name of that swim meet. And we're like, oh my gosh. And just to show how small the world is, as it turns out, he was at that meet I swam in Stavanger in 1980, in November of 1980. And in 1983, when he came to Bartlesville, I swam in that swim meet at the Meet of Champions. I drove down. I was a freshman in in college, but because I was going to junior nationals with the Phillips team as part of the relay and to swim in individual events, I had to come swim in the Meet of Champions because then Oklahoma Swimming would help fund some of my trip. So he and I had already swum in 2 meets together. And here we are. It's like, wow, it's a really small world.
Thank you for listening to the last of the Col-Hi Wildcats 1982 podcast. And we'll be right back after this.
Pop's Daylight Donuts, man, they've got the best tasting donuts, sausage wraps, pastries in Northeast Oklahoma. And also, if you'll tell the staff there, hey, Scott Townsend said to give me a large spicy pig, they'll give you a free large spicy sausage wrap. But you have to tell them Scott Townsend sent you. So tell them, hey, Scott Townsend told me to tell you to give me a large spicy pig. So there's the offer. There's the call to action. So go to Pop's Daylight Donuts, say hi to Mark for me, and go to Pop's Daylight Donuts and get you some. The other sponsor is Cast-A-Fly Outdoor Adventures.
Adventure. That's where it begins. We look to create and document our moments in time while embracing the majestic wonder and beauty of the great outdoors. Our quest is to explore the back roads of the Ozarks, camping, fishing, and just getting lost. Refresh your spirit and join us on our next adventure.
Paul and his crew invite you to subscribe to the Cast-A-Fly Outdoor Adventures YouTube channel. You know, you mentioned your mom and dad and your family. So how many kids were there total? Your brothers and
I
sisters?
am one of 14 kids, and
So that's
that's
just
how many.
amazing.
You know, they made a TV show about a family like that. But they're very different from us. But we only had one washer and dryer and one dishwasher that would occasionally break.
Yeah.
But
what was the logistics like for a family like that? You know, do you rotate people in and out when you feed them, or did you,
No.
you know,
So
everything
so-
like a major production that sounds, or I would think, you know, when you have
Yes.
that many people.
Oh, Scott, you know, my mother, everybody, when I tell people I'm one of 14 people outside of Bartlesville, they always ask, did you grow up on a farm? And I think, no, both of my parents were educated. My mother graduated from Purdue University in 1943 during the war.
Huh.
She was 20 years old. She had turned 20 in March, and she graduated in July, or I think July, because she'd already been pushed a year ahead earlier in her education, just due to circumstances.
Oh yeah.
And then she goes to college and she's studying, she wants to be a chemical engineer, but they wouldn't let women be engineers then. So she's studying analytical chemistry. And then once we got into the war, she said they fast tracked all the technical people. So they had a full semester in the spring, a full semester in the fall, and a full semester in the summer, just getting these kids through school.
Yeah.
So she's 20 years old. She's got a degree and she moves to Bartlesville from Indiana. I think it's West Lafayette, Indiana. There was no way I was prepared to go to work like that when I was 20. Thank goodness I didn't have to.
So why did she come to Bartlesville?
To work for Phillips.
Okay, there you go.
And she and my dad graduated from the University of Iowa, and he came to Bartlesville also.
Okay.
So they met in Bartlesville. And so 14 kids. My mother was the most organized, focused person, and planning was definitely a strength of hers. So there's 20 years difference between my oldest brother and my youngest sister. And so by the time I was born, I think Camp graduated late. He'd had polio. And so he spent a year in the hospital. So I think he was 18, almost 19 when he graduated from high school. So I was 2. So he moved out before Laura Jane was ever born. And I'm trying to think, Studi,
where did you fall in all this?
I am number 12.
Okay.
I have 2 younger sisters, Karen and Laura. Sometimes you'll hear me call her Laura Jane because that's what we called her.
Yeah.
And so there were, I think at one point we owned 6 cars. So that'll be fun when you ask me which car I drove in high school. We would go into mass because yes, we're Catholic, but that's not why we have 14 kids. It's just, you know, fertility runs in the family.
Yeah.
We'd go to mass and usually at least 2 cars, but back then you didn't have seat belts. There were so many times I had to lie down in the back window, and sometimes me and Karen both had to lie down in the back window.
Oh, I remember doing that. Yeah.
You know, and it was always because we had to wear dresses to St. John's. Make sure the dress is down. Otherwise, everybody in Bartlesville is going to see your underwear.
Oh, the horror.
I know. But we rarely went on vacation, but when we did, we would take 2 cars. And I think the first vacation we took, I was 8 years old, and we're going up to Cincinnati to visit my mother's family. And we're driving 2 cars, and my father always worked on cars. That was, I think, his way of escaping the chaos in the house.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So we're driving, and I'm in the car with my mom, and my mom was so good. One of the things she did was she knew which kids got along, who did my dad tolerate better. Like, he didn't like my constant chattering. But he, like always, he would keep one of my older brothers, my brother Charles, in line, because Charles was smart aleck. But when my dad was around, Charles always behaved. So she would put us in different cars, and we're in the car, and the car overheats. I think it was the '69 Buick LeSabre. And the car overheats, and my dad was leading the way. And we would, like, if we needed to go to the bathroom, we'd put up a sign, bathroom stop, lunch. And so my mom pulls the car over, and finally a policeman
You mean you didn't
stops.
get your cell phone out and tell him that you were?
Not back then. The policeman stops, and my mother says, well, my husband is, 20 minutes down the road. Guy takes off like a bat out of hell. He's chasing my dad down so he can come back. And so we would do things like that. There was always the calendar. My mother had a calendar, and if you had anything you wanted to do, it had to be written in the calendar. She was very organized and always came up with creative ways to decide who's doing what chores. She would use, a chore chart. Sometimes it would be a spin thing. Let's spin it. And everybody's name would be on the outside, and on the inside were all the chores. And if it lands here, oh, Chris, you have to empty the dishwasher. Karen, you got to set the table. Laura, you help with dinner. Charles, you wash the dishes by hand. Somebody mops the floor, because we had tile floors.
That's so cool. That's a great system.
It was. And the other thing that my mother did when my parents built this house right shortly the year before I was born. So they moved in April. I was born in July. And there's a drinking fountain. There was a drinking fountain in our house, and I believe it's still there.
Is this house on a
washing.
corner? Is this house on a corner?
No, it's on Moonlight Drive. So most people driving from Woodland Park to College High would drive through it. We weren't on the corner. We were the next one in. Big white house, flat roof.
Yeah. So if you're going on Silver
level.
Lake.
Yep.
You turn left.
Turn into Hillcrest.
Yeah. So
and then you go and turn
north
left.
on Silver Lake.
Yeah.
Going north on Silver Lake.
Is north towards Adams?
Towards Adams.
Or towards Price. Yeah.
Towards Adams.
Yep.
Left on that street.
Left on Skyline.
And then the first left after?
Second left. First left was Mercury Court. Second left.
Okay.
Onto Moonlight. And there was a house on the corner that was Philip Benz, and that was the dad. He had older kids. And then we were the ones right next to that. And it was a big 3,300 square foot house, which.
Did it have a circular drive in front?
It did. Okay. It did. Huge driveway.
Yeah.
Because the 6 cars, it could park, I don't know, probably 15 cars in that driveway. And sometimes I felt like we had that many. We have a party, nobody's parking on the street. We need to get the valet. No, not really.
Yeah. The reason why I ask is because I think, didn't we go out on a date once?
We did. The only date I had in high school.
Yeah, and so I remember going that way, yeah, and then coming around in the circular driveway, and where did we go? I don't even know where we went. We went to eat somewhere. Was it Garfield's?
We went to a movie, and then we had pizza, and I was so glad because I was so hungry.
Oh, wow. Good times.
It was. You know what, Scott? I will tell you, it was really interesting to hear your views on the movie. I can't even remember what movie it was, but I remember being interested in hearing what you thought.
Oh, that's cool. I wonder what it was.
I don't even remember.
That would be interesting to be able to remember,
Oh yeah.
Remember what that was.
I'm sure I won't.
Yeah.
But there was something I was going to tell you about the house, but
water fountain, circular drive, lots of cars.
I shared a room. So I had a room, and I shared. The youngest 6 in my family are girls. And in fact, Donna, Cindy, Chris, and Karen were all a year apart. And then Terry's a year and a half older than Donna, and Laura's a year and a half younger than Karen. So in like 7 years, there's 6 kids. We shared a room, and we had 3 sets of bunk beds, and we had 3 dressers, and you got half of everything. And we had 1 walk-in closet, which is about the same size as my current walk-in closet now, and I think it's small, and I got about this much space. I swear it was 18 inches to hang my clothes. And so when I moved into college and I had the traditional dorm size closet, I had plenty of room for all of my clothes because we shared clothes. I would wear Cindy's. I could wear their pants. Their shirts were usually too small for me because my shoulders were a little broader than theirs, but we shared clothes. Not so much shoes because we only had a couple of pairs of shoes.
Yeah.
But it was interesting, and to me it was very fun growing up in a family that big, because
always something going on, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, and if I was mad at Cindy, as a little kid, I could play with Karen, or if I was mad at Karen, I could hang out with Donna. And we helped each other with homework, so we were doing homework on the dining room table, things like that. And Thanksgiving was always fun. We actually would set up, there must have been 20, 30 people in the house because the neighbors would come over. One year, I'm in college, and all of us basically at this point are of drinking age, and it was either Thanksgiving or Christmas, must have been Christmas. And my dad got tired of paying for all the beer cans that we drank. So he decided one year he's going to get a keg. And we kept the keg outside, and we had this solar screen in front of the house to kind of protect it because the entire house or the front of the house faced west, and there were no trees. And so we had these screens to kind of protect the house from the direct sunlight, but it also protected it from the view of the street. And so we had this keg outside, and people would come to visit, and we'd answer the door. Hey, how are you? Would you like a drink? Would you like a beer? Pump, pump, pump. Shh. Here, have a beer. Now come on in.
That's so funny. What kind of car did you drive? So we'll go to the car question.
I got to drive, like I said, when I was a senior in high school, I believe we had 6 cars. And that included my grandmother's 1965 Pontiac Star Chief, which was this huge boat. So I hated it when I had to drive that car because it's, it was bigger than a house.
Yeah.
But it was really luxurious. I say that, it had vinyl seats, but it was kind of this clear plastic sparkly vinyl. It had automatic brights. It had, let me think. Wow. It had a really nice radio, and I could fit the entire football team if we wanted to go somewhere. So that we had a 69 Buick LeSabre that I actually drove my junior year in college. And that was the nice car that my dad drove to work when he was in a carpool, and he would drive on Thursdays. My mother had a Pontiac station wagon that I would sometimes drive. When my brother Camp, I talked about, he's the oldest one. He died when I was 15 at the end of our sophomore year. And he had, very nice, I think it was a 78 Grand Prix, mag wheels, very nice radio. And so I liked it when I got to drive that. Probably the car that I drove the most was the 1978 Buick Regal. It was this blue Regal. And there was another car they had, it might have been a Grand Am that
my brother drove
whoever
a
was
Regal.
at college. Oh, I love that Regal.
It was an 81 or 82, something like that.
Probably
it was
probably looked similar.
Yeah, it was a very good car. Yeah.
Yeah.
We came back
And-
from Texas one summer, and we had 2 cars waiting on us. Mine was a Cutlass Supreme 1981, and his was a black Buick Regal 81 or 82. And so, yeah, those were great cars.
So, and my senior year in high school, my brother Charles, he was at Oklahoma State, and he said he drove a Dodge Ram pickup truck, like maybe a 1500 or whatever it was. It was a Dodge 4-wheel drive Dodge Ram pickup truck. And he told my mom he needed the Regal for a while. So I got to drive that pickup truck. It was so much fun. Until the one time I was messing with the 4-wheel drive thing, and I'm sitting at the stoplight at Silver Lake and Adams, and I've done something, and the car will not go into gear, and I don't know what I've done, and I'm like so totally embarrassed, and I can't pick up the phone and call my dad because I don't have a cell phone.
Right.
These very gracious guys stopped behind me, came in, pop, pop, pop. They knew exactly what they were doing. Off I went. And I was like, thank you.
And off you go. When you think of College High 1982 teachers, classes, who would be your favorite teacher or class?
You know, I'm trying to think, probably John Baird was, because I had John Baird for pre-calc as a junior in calculus, and then computer science. And so John Baird, we were so lucky, and everybody has said that we were so lucky to have the school system, but really Baton Rouge, I'm sorry, that's where I lived for 25 years. Bartlesville was really an upper middle class town. It was born on basically, well, I guess it grew as a result of Phillips Petroleum Company and Price Pipeline, which were there. And those two companies brought a lot of educated people, incredibly intelligent and capable families to Bartlesville. And we were the result of that. And so we were really an upper middle class town, and we had incredible teachers. Jean Dean had been a chemist at Phillips. My mom knew her, and
oh yeah, I didn't know
they
that.
had worked together, I believe. And so our teachers were incredibly experienced. And I was, I'm a chemical engineer, so definitely all the STEM classes were really interesting to me. But the other class I liked, and I liked the way John Baird taught, and he was just a nice guy. He would engage the students, and in a really good way that really helped us grow, and we could be vulnerable with them, and we could, tell them what we're worried about and things like that. But the other teacher that I really liked was Mr. Simmons.
Oh yeah.
And
English?
He was our English literature teacher, and he was unusual, and he was theatrical, which was cool. And then he'd run into the closet and smoke a cigarette. He'd start shaking, he'd smoke a cigarette, he'd come back. But I liked the way, first of all, I liked the literature. I found that very interesting. And he challenged us to think. Those discussions that we would have, he had seats, 2 rows of seats on this side facing the center of the room, 2 rows of seats, and we would have discussions. And
was I in there? I think I had him. I think I was in
most of it. I think he was the only English literature teacher at College High. So if you
because
took
I
English
remember facing each other, the 2 rows facing each other.
Yeah,
in the center.
And like A Tale of Two Cities. We read.
Beowulf.
I hated.
Mindy talked about Beowulf.
Oh yeah, I never read the book. I copied my brother's paper and I got an A on it.
Oh yeah.
I did. It had been long enough, and I really need to go back and read the book because I feel really guilty. But I copied my brother's paper. I learned, but from copying that paper, at least something good came out of it because I learned how to write a paper because Monty had done the thesis sentence, here's the 3 sentences you're going to talk about, paragraph 1. It was a traditional 5-paragraph paper.
Yeah.
So at least I learned how to write a paper. But if you read any of those, and then the poets like John Donne and Galbraith and all of those guys, then you had Mr. Simmons, and that was he gave me a really good foundation for writing. In spite of the fact that I copied my brother's paper, I still learned how to write from him. And he was really interesting to talk to and made us really think. And I really appreciated that from him.
What would you say is your greatest accomplishment since graduation between then and now?
Probably recovering from my accident. And by accident, in 2009, I'm, swimming, I'm coaching. At this point, I'm a master swim coach, and I'm helping out the swim team, and I'm coaching a couple of nights a week or 3 nights a week. And I was coaching the middle school, and I coached the hurdles because, you've read that I was pretty good at hurdles too. And I went to jump a hurdle to show a girl how to do it. And then I thought, what are you doing, you idiot? You can't jump this hurdle. And I stopped. And the end result was I broke my right leg right at the knee, the tibial plateau. I fell forward, threw my arms up. I broke my left elbow here. I dislocated my shoulder. I spent 10 days in the hospital, 5 surgeries. I spent 8 days in a rehab hospital learning how to get around in a wheelchair because I couldn't put any weight on my left arm. I couldn't put any weight on my right leg. I can't even bend my arm enough to eat, and I'm left-handed. And so 10 days in the hospital, 8 days in a rehab hospital, and 3 months in a wheelchair.
My God.
And when I fell, when I came up, so what I did was my right leg broke as I stopped, and that's a compression injury. It was just dumb luck, freak accident. And then I rolled forward, and I kind of did a somersault, and I remember my leg breaking and thinking, oh, that's not going to be good for breaststroke, because I'm planning to go to nationals in Puerto Rico in July, and this is in March. And I'm like, oh. So I come up, and my leg is kind of tucked underneath me, and I'm like, I'd better straighten this out now. It's not going to straighten out later. And I straighten my leg out with my hand, and the bones, my leg just doesn't, my knee where it's the bone, the tibia just doesn't quite look right. And I'm like, ooh, I think I dislocated my knee, and I've got my shoulder dislocated, so I'm holding it like this because if I move it, it hurts. And my elbow I broke it like right here, and it's like a 2-inch separation. Did not break the skin, came very close. And so I'm like this. And finally one of the other parents who's there, she was a nurse, worked in pain management. She came, and she's holding my arm up. I take my phone, beep, 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 beep. My son's best friend, his dad is an orthopedic surgeon. Jeb, what do I do? But it's his wife. Nope, Jeb's in a meeting. Well, tell him I dislocated my shoulder and I dislocated my knee. I just need to know what to do. His son, my son's best friend, because my son and his best friend are there, comes over 5 minutes later.
Here's your reminder. Drink water.
Hang on. Alexa, off.
Here's your reminder. Drink water.
Alexa, off. Sorry. So your son and his friend.
I could drink some water for you.
I guess I could. Oh, yeah.
There you go.
I'm trying to drink more water.
So Nick comes over, Miss Chris, because that's what all the kids in South Louisiana call the adults. Miss Chris, my dad says you have to call EMS. I'm shaking my head. I am not that hurt.
Oh my gosh.
Little do I know, Miss Chris, you have to call EMS. Okay. This is me. Yeah, I'm at the Catholic High track. Yeah, I'm as far away from the track entrance as can be possible. This is what's going on. I need an ambulance. So they come over, and I can't use my right leg. I can't use my left arm. And the ambulance guys, they check me. They're like going, okay, blah, blah, blah. There's the gurney. Can you get onto the gurney by yourself? And I'm looking at this thing and I'm going, I'm sorry, guys, you're going to have to pick me up. I can't do it. So Jeb, the orthopedic surgeon, comes and, they're wheeling me down. Of course, this is the time all of the parents are there to pick up their kids. And I'm thinking, oh God, this is the most unfortunate time. I'm so embarrassed. So I'm leaning my head back. I've got my eyes closed so I don't see all these parents. And later somebody goes, yeah, Chris, you look like you were dead. Like going, I just didn't want to see all of the faces. And,
spare me the embarrassment.
Right. And then Jeb comes, and as soon as I get out of the track, the gate, he's looking at me and he's like, yeah, Chris, this isn't good. You're going to be out of commission for 3 months. And he says this to me, but I go into the hospital, into the ER, and then because the guy said he would put my shoulder, the ambulance guy said he would put my shoulder back. And I'm like, don't you touch my shoulder. Because if my shoulder gets screwed up, I can't swim.
Right.
So anyway, after my 10 days in the hospital, I'm in the rehab hospital, and Jeb comes to see to make sure everything's okay, make sure all my incisions look good. And he says, Chris, I know you swim. I know you swim competitively at the national level. Because by then I'd only been swimming 2 years as a master's. He goes, don't expect to be able to swim at that level after all that you've done here. And I'm thinking, oh, you are so wrong. I am going to show you. And, at that point, I'm going to do everything they tell me to do here in this rehab hospital. If they tell me, yeah, I had to play with toddler toys, taking, moving the beads from one side to the next, because I had complications and some nerve damage on my left arm. And I had to learn just to turn my arm this way. And I thought to myself, I am going to get back and I am going to compete at the national level. I may not be as fast. I'm still going to be there. And I think I spent 6 months in physical therapy. It was 6 months, 3 hours a day, 3 times a week, because I had so many components that needed, or so many limbs that needed physical therapy. I'm getting this back. And after 3 weeks, they would let me swim in the water, and I'm swimming with one arm. They're letting me kick so that my leg, wouldn't atrophy so much.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really help, because after 3 months in a wheelchair, my leg really did look like concentration camp. It was that skinny.
Oh man.
But I got it back. And so I had my accident in 2009. And I often say that's when I broke myself, because it was purely self-inflicted. But in 2014, I won nationals as an old fart master swimmer.
All right.
And not only did I win, I won the 400 IM, which is long course meters. So what they swim at the Olympics, the butterfly back, breast and free. It was like a 6-minute race. I won that race. And
oh my gosh.
So that's probably my biggest accomplishment, was going from being completely broken to getting everything back and
winning.
And then winning. Yeah.
We're up against the time here. The last and final question that I ask everyone is, what would you tell your 18-year-old self?
I was
knowing
17.
what you know. Oh, 17.
I turned 18 in the summer. a couple of weeks before I went and headed off to school.
Knowing what
There's
you
a
know
saying.
now.
There's a saying, and it comes from Winnie the Pooh, and it comes from one of those. Christopher Robin says it to Winnie Pooh: "You're smarter than you seem. You're stronger than you seem. You're smarter than you believe. You're better than you believe." And I don't have the actual quote, but the first time I heard it, I thought, that's what I need to tell myself. I was so sure that I was not as smart as anybody else. I knew in swimming I was an athlete. Sure, I was good, but there was always somebody who was going to be better than me. And you go to college and you're on this all-star team.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would tell myself that really don't listen to that voice inside your head that tells you you're not good enough. And probably the other thing I would tell myself is get more sleep. I just, I didn't make sleep enough of a priority, and I really wish I had.
Sleep is so important, and they're finding out more and more how important it is. And especially if you're an athlete, they're discovering now, there was this one lady I follow, Louisa Nicola, anyway, neuroscientist, studies sleep with athletes. And, you get guys like Michael Phelps and all these other athletes that take sleep so, LeBron James, they take sleep so seriously. And it's not just, they're just not playing around. They're just not going to sleep. I mean, it is very purposeful. They have a time to go to sleep, a time to get up, and whatever, eye shades or blackout curtains, it has to be totally silent. Temperature has to be just right, because they know that they're building muscle while they're in bed, and they have a better quality of life, and they can do more. And so anyway, it's pretty interesting.
And it's so important for your brain, that the beta amyloids, the things that contribute to Alzheimer's. My mother died from Alzheimer's, or died after having Alzheimer's, but those get cleared up when you're sleeping. And I know the one thing my mother never did was sleep. She rarely got more than 6 hours of sleep. But in college, I remember being so tired that it took extra effort for me to learn the material, because I was so exhausted from the schedule that I had, because 4 hours a day was just in the water or in the weight room, and that didn't count showering, getting there, warming up. Pretty much 4 hours a day in college, including Saturdays. I was training.
Incredible. Probably why I didn't see you at KU, because you were always busy swimming. Of course, I never saw anybody really. I didn't see.
And you saw all the things that I did in high school. Very structured. I never watched TV. I still don't, but very structured. Schedule all the time. And I know you asked people what was the thing that you were worried about most in high school, and it certainly wasn't whether I was popular or not. It was how I was going to get the next assignment done and still try to get to bed by before 11 o'clock, because I had to get up at 5:15 the next morning. And how am I going to get this paper written? How am I going to do this? And then how am I going to pay for college? But another story, and I know we're running out of time.
Well, Chris, I really appreciate your time and sitting with us and bringing us up to speed as to what you're doing and where you've been and what you've done. And I know if anybody has any questions or wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
So I'm on Facebook, Chris Frederic, but yeah, they'll see my name and see the way that the funky French spelling of my last name. You can reach out to me there, or just reach out to me on Messenger. That's probably the easiest way.
Okay, sounds good. Any last words to the Wildcats listening out there, watching, listening?
Scott, this has been so much fun to listen to all these interviews, these podcasts. I actually listen to these while I go walk. And I am so thoroughly looking forward to seeing everybody at the reunion next year. So if you're listening to this and you haven't done an interview, Scott makes it so easy. And then the rest of us are really interested in hearing about
Right.
what you've got to say.
I would
So
agree.
that's it. Can't wait to see everybody.
Very good. Well, for Chris, Hays, Frederic, this is Scott Townsend. Thanks for watching and listening to the last of the Col-Hi Wildcats 1982. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.
The Last of the Col-Hi Wildcats 1982 podcast is a Dietzo Man production. For more episodes, visit the Last of the Col-Hi Wildcats 1982 YouTube channel, listen on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.